2021, Rockstar released Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. This was a pretty big occasion for Nintendo fans because ever since GTA 2, which had a Game Boy Color version, yes, that's true, ever since then, there's never been a mainline GTA game on a Nintendo console. They had a couple of spin-offs on the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS, but that was about it. So to see this entire trilogy of 3 Vice City and San Andreas come to the Switch was a pretty major deal for myself, and I'm sure other people who have Nintendo consoles. However, when the game released, it was not in a very good shape. The port was done by Grove Street Games, which is not a studio with a great reputation. And there are a lot of graphical issues. The rain looked really off. A lot of the lighting wasn't as great as people wanted it to be. But in a very surprising turn of events, Rockstar actually updated the entire trilogy 3 years later, like late 2024. There was a big update for the GTA Trilogy across all platforms that improved the lighting a lot. And it also fixed things like the rain and all of that. So it was a pretty major update for this collection, and it made it a lot better. Now, I'm not going to go over all of the changes in this update. A lot of YouTube channels have done it. I'll link one of them below. But this update actually got me to finally buy the trilogy because I was very interested in it initially, and then I didn't get it because of all the reviews and everything. But after seeing this update, I thought, you know, I actually do want to give this a shot, and it's probably a lot cheaper now, so I grabbed it. So the question is it actually worth playing the GTA Trilogy on the Switch now? And the answer is yes. I would say it is, but let's talk about it a little bit. First, let's break down each of the games included in this trilogy. First off, we have GTA 3. And I am not a fan of this game, like whatsoever. I kind of played Vice City and San Andreas growing up. I never really heard about 3 for the longest time until I saw it somewhere on a library computer or something. And I remember I really didn't care for it very much. And yeah, playing it today, that kind of stays the same. I'm still not a very big fan of that. GTA 3, there's a few issues with it. I think the first one would be the physics are not enjoyable. Like everything is really stiff in GTA 3. Driving vehicles is so frustrating because it just feels like it's so hard to turn. Like the vehicles just aren't very fluid in the way that they move, and it gets really annoying, especially because there's the NPC AI is so bad or annoying as well. Like the cars are constantly swerving in front of you, and because of the rigid physics, it's just not very fun to drive in GTA 3. Like whenever I go into like a crossing or like a corner, an intersection, there would be something annoying happening. Like some car will come on from the side and get in front of me, and I couldn't really avoid it. I really didn't have a great time playing GTA 3. The physics kind of sucked sometimes. Like going up, like in some uphill segments, it felt like some cars weren't really fast enough to move at a decent speed. It was weird. I didn't really enjoy playing a lot of GTA 3. The world is also a bit more drab. Like the lighting in this remake is nice, and I think it does make it look better. But I think the world overall is a little bit more drab than the other 2 games, and I don't know. It doesn't feel as enjoyable to be in. It's also like obviously the first game in the series that has like proper voice acting, and it's not as good as it would be in later entries. Like it's fine, but you can tell the budget doesn't seem like it was very high for that. And I also found it kind of weird that the main protagonist in GTA 3 is a completely silent character. Like that works for a lot of franchises and it's fine, but it's so weird because the characters in Vice City and San Andreas have like pretty big personalities, and this guy is just silent the entire time, and I feel like it's kind of strange to see that in a GTA game. But yeah, that's kind of a lot of the downsides that I have with GTA 3. But it is like, it's not a bad game. I just kind of don't like it. But it's a pretty big world, you know, it's still an open world game. It takes place in Liberty City, which is based on New York. and it's the more contemporary of the games. Like at the time that it came out back in 2001, it was the setting in the game was fairly close to the real life date at that time, or at least it seems to be. But I don't know. Overall, I didn't enjoy it as much. Something about the story that also bugged me is that so much of it seems to be like, oh, you worked for someone from the start, at the start, and then they either betray you or you betray them and you end up killing them, and then you move on to serve someone else and then you betray them. It's just, it feels like that's a big theme in GTA 3. Even in the ending, I actually looked this up because I didn't really get the ending in full apparently, but it sounds like you shoot the person that you save in the final mission. It's kind of weird. So yeah, there's a lot of things in GTA 3 that kind of make it a little bit less enjoyable than the subsequent ones. So then we move on to GTA Vice City, and this is incredible. So like, back in the day when these games originally came out brand new, Vice City came out just 1 year after GTA 3. It had like 9 months of development time, and it is a huge leap forward. It's so hard to process for me how much better Vice City is compared to 3. So the physics are like completely different. They improved it so much. The entire movement of the characters is so much smoother. Driving is so much more fun. The AI still does the thing where they swerve in front of you, but because the physics found driving are so much more fun and fluid, it's not as big of a problem. Like avoiding a collision is fun. Like trying to swerve out of the way, it works and it's fun. And even if you do crash, the crashes are so much more intense because of those more fluid physics that everything about the game just feels a lot more fun. Like when I crashed the car in Vice City, I didn't feel as annoyed as I did in GTA 3. I was just having fun causing chaos in Vice City. So it was just overall the way the physics improved so much in Vice City, just it feels like a completely different game. I heard that it started development as like DLC or an expansion for GTA 3. I kind of find that hard to believe because it's so much better. Like it doesn't feel like it's built on the same engine. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, I the physics in Vice City huge leap forward from 3. I love it so much more because of that. Like just changing the controls makes everything so much better in Vice City. But it also has, it has other improvements. I think visually it is a way nicer world. So Vice City is based on Miami, and it's set in the 80s, so it's actually a lot, a good bit behind in terms of the time compared to 3. But it makes for this really cool vibe. It's very much more colorful overall. Like everything just feels way more lively and colorful in GTA Vice City. I think it's just way prettier to look at. And out of the 3 games here, I actually would say it's the most pretty of all of them. It's I don't know. The world in Vice City is just very visually appealing to me. I like it a lot more than 3 and even San Andreas, I would say, to some extent at least. So yeah, visually Vice City is also way nicer than 3, even though it's like based on the same platform. So like the graphics aren't that different, but it's just the way that they're realized that really changes my entire perception of it, and it's way nicer. One thing that I like in Vice City and 3 that I don't think happens in San Andreas is they have like variants of cars that are based on the specific gangs that appear in the game. So like GTA 3 had the Sentinel car, and then there was a car called the Mafia Sentinel, which was changed in some ways. And there was the Stinger, and then there's the Yakuza Stinger, which is also a little bit different and faster, I believe. And then Vice City has something similar with like the Hermes, and then there's the Cuban Hermes and things like that. I do like also the story in Vice City a lot more. I like the characters a lot more. They have more personality. They feel a lot more real overall. Like even the main character has an actual personality. There's still a lot of those elements of like, oh, you have this person that used to help you or that you worked for, and then you end up betraying them. It happens a bit still, but I think it's a little less prominent than in 3. And I don't know, the character seems like it's a little more focused on itself rather than just going with whatever is happening in the story. So yeah, I like that about it too. There's a lot more interesting characters, I think, in Vice City. All of them have well, it's a bit more unique characteristics to them, including the main character, which is really cool. Yeah, overall, Vice City is just a huge leap forward from 3. It's just so incomprehensible to me that this game came out just 1 year after 3 because it improved so much. Like, even the voice acting, I think, is better across the board. It's still not perfect, but I think it's way, way, way better than it was in GTA 3. Like, all of the characters seem to have, like, decent voices. They express emotions decently well. Yeah, overall, I think Vice City is a huge leap forward as well from GTA 3. It's completely different world in my opinion. And then we cap off the trilogy with GTA San Andreas. So when this game came out, it took a little bit longer. This one actually came out 2 years after Vice City, so it was a longer development cycle, and you can definitely tell. So the physics and everything, I think Vice City really nailed them, and San Andreas didn't really try to master that too much. Like, all of the controls feel really nice, everything is very fluid, crashes are still a lot of fun, driving is still a lot of fun. They really kept the good things about Vice City in terms of the controls and the physics. It is still a very fun game to play. But San Andreas expands the scope incredibly. So it takes place across 3 cities, so it's not just Liberty City or Vice City. You have 3 major cities in San Andreas. You got Los Santos, where you start, which is based on Los Angeles, San Fierro, which is based on San Francisco, and Las Venturas, which is based on Las Vegas. So all of these cities are pretty different. I would say more so Las Venturas is different from the other two, more so, but they're all pretty different from each other for sure, and they're all huge. Like, they're all very big areas, and the fact that you have 3 of them in the same game on a game that was on the PlayStation 2 is insane. Like, it's the scope of this game is enormous. And on top of that, they filmed this world with so much stuff to the point, to me personally, it's almost a negative, because I don't always like huge open worlds that have too many little things to do. So I actually felt that in San Andreas, I ended up not doing as much of the stuff that was available to do as I did in the previous games, because there's so many like side missions and things that are kind of optional, and because there's so much of it, I kind of wanted to focus more so on like the story missions a lot more in San Andreas. So yeah, like, for me, it almost is a downside, but overall it's definitely an improvement, because there's so much you can do, so many ways that you can have fun in the game, and it's really, really cool. The story is also the longest yet. I don't really like the main character in San Andreas very much. I mean, it depends. I think in some contexts, he's a little weird, but in overall, he's fine, I think. And by the end, I think it's definitely a good character overall. But he has some weird moments. But yeah, San Andreas is a huge adventure, and there's so much to do. And again, I think it is a downside in some ways, almost, but because they added a lot of mechanics that weren't there before. Now you have to eat to make sure you don't lose your energy. Like, you need to eat every now and then to make sure that your character doesn't get hungry and start losing life. You have to go to the gym to start getting more buff. That was actually fine. I actually had fun maxing out the muscle and stamina of my character. That was nice. But yeah, you have to eat, you have to go to the gym. Then at some point they introduce girlfriends, which is part of the reason why I don't like the main character as much, because you get like 3 girlfriends in the game, and you always have like 2 at the same time. That I don't know, I don't like that very much. And the relationship mechanics are like, it's kind of whatever. I never really care for relationship mechanics like that in games, so I don't care for that very much. But it has a lot of stuff. They added a lot of things, and while they didn't mess with the physics of GTA Vice City very much, they really had that nailed down, and they kept that going in San Andreas. They did add a lot to your movement options too. One thing that I found really annoying playing 3 and Vice City is that, like, you can't really jump over things. Like, you can do small jumps, but if you wanted to go over a wall or something, you can't do that. And in San Andreas, they added the ability to climb over walls. Like, so if you jump towards a wall that's high enough for you to climb, you'll stretch your hands up and you'll climb over it and then climb on top of buildings and things like that. So that already adds a lot of possibilities to your movement. They added swimming, which is huge because in the first two games, like whenever you fell in water, that was a death sentence. I do think Vice City improved it a little bit just with like correcting errors. Like if you missed a jump by a small bit, it would kind of reset you to get you on a ground platform. But San Andreas just straight up adds the ability to swim, which means that now the water is only really dangerous if you fall into it inside a car and you drown, because otherwise you can always just swim out of it. You can go wherever. You can actually get yourself in trouble in the beginning because you can go into like military areas by accident and then the police comes on and kills you. So, that's not good. But you have so much more freedom by being able to swim. There's a lot more aquatic vehicles, I believe. Like you do spend a bit more time on the water, and obviously being able to swim and dive. You can even go underwater. So that's also a pretty big deal. And then there were RC helicopter missions in Vice City, but San Andreas just straight up adds a lot of aircrafts that you can pilot. There's still some RC helicopter stuff and planes and whatever, but there are also a lot of missions where you actually drive or pilot airplanes and helicopters, like life-sized ones that your character is inside of, and then they have weapons and things like that. Um, so it adds a lot more depth overall. Like there's just so much more in San Andreas. It's such a huge adventure in so many ways compared to the previous two. Like it's a huge expansion of everything that the previous two did, and it's a huge game. It's a very good game. Importantly, like it's a super good game. Like there are parts of it that I don't care about, but I can just focus on the things that I do like and have a great time with it. Like it's awesome. Like San Andreas is really cool. And well, overall, like I talked about the general look of the other two games. Like San Andreas, I don't like it as much as Vice City. I think Los Santos and San Fierro are a bit more boring than Vice City as places. But Las Venturas does make up for it. I think it's a pretty good representation of Las Vegas. It's very bright, it's very colorful. So I always like seeing that in a game. And Las Venturas definitely delivers on that. I like that very much. Yeah, so visually, I think on the whole, Vice City is still my preferred one, but Las Venturas is pretty cool. And with everything else that San Andreas brings, it's obviously like it's just a better adventure overall. Like I think it's really cool. Another thing I like about San Andreas is that there are a few callbacks to the previous two games, which I didn't really know was the case at all. Like I did play San Andreas when I was younger, but I never got super far into it. But anyway, what I really like about San Andreas is that there are a lot of callbacks to both of the previous games. And it's cool to see that connection. I mean, Vice City had a little thing where you met Donald Love, which is this character that appears in GTA 3 and then actually disappears towards the end with no explanation. But in Vice City, you meet a younger version of him, only for one cutscene, which is kind of strange. But you do meet him, like he's there, so that was cool. But then San Andreas takes that way further. Like San Andreas takes place between Vice City, which is in the 80s, and then I think GTA 3 would have been either very late 90s or early 2000s. And so GTA San Andreas is like in the middle there, like mid 90s, I think. And so there are a lot of characters that you meet here that come from both of those games. You actually meet Rosenberg from GTA Vice City. He is a pretty major character there, and he appears here with a very weird look. There's also Kent Paul. He's also from Vice City, and he appears here again. And then there's Claude, the main character from GTA 3, appears here. And that was very surprising. I won't say exactly like the context of it, because it's kind of interesting to realize it yourself. But yeah, like the character appears here before the events that happen in GTA 3. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, like each of these games, like they keep getting better and better with each one. I think if you want to skip GTA 3, you probably can. I definitely would recommend playing Vice City and San Andreas. They're both excellent games. Yeah, overall, the games are pretty good. So then what about the Switch ports? Because that's the big thing here, is like, how do these games work on the Switch? They came out on the PS2. You could play them there if you wanted to, or on PC. What do these ports bring to the table? Well, a few issues. So the graphics did improve a lot with that update. Like, if you saw the videos on that, like, the graphics are way better now than they were when this trilogy came out. But I still noticed a bunch of issues, or at least there's three major things that I noticed that happen across all three games that are a bit problematic for me. So there's this situation where if you're going fast and there's like objects that have a big contrast to what's behind them, you can very clearly see a trail of like a smearing of the object against the background. Like, it's very, very noticeable. In some situations, it's not always noticeable, but it definitely happens, and you can see it right here in Vice City, and then here in 3, and also here in San Andreas, or San Andreas. Like, it happens in all three of the games, and it's very jarring sometimes. But there's something else which is related to the vehicles. Whenever you're driving a car or any vehicle, in any ground vehicle at least, in any of these games, it forms this texture on the ground behind the car that I guess it's supposed to be like a shadow or something, but it doesn't really feel like it. It just kind of, it feels really strange because you see this sort of blurry texture and you see it move along the base texture of the actual floor, and you can tell where the edges are, and like, it feels really unnatural. And this too happens in all three of the games. You see it here in GTA 3, and here in GTA Vice City, and here in GTA San Andreas. So it happens in all three games. You might not always notice it, but once you do, it's really hard to ignore it. It's very, very apparent. And then one last issue that I think is actually really strange is there's a lot of situations where the textures on buildings and things won't load for a good while. Like, even as you approach them, if you're going too quickly, they just won't load for a bit. You can be driving on messed up geometry, or the buildings look really blurry. There's this instance in San Andreas that when I was playing, where like the texture on the floor was just missing. It's like you could see right through it to the void for a while. Like, it happens a lot. And I don't know if this was like also in the PS2 versions back then, but even if it was, I think it's really weird that, you know, that's still happening in the hardware that's so much more powerful now. Like, you can definitely, like, you have the power to make this stuff load faster and work properly. So I find it kind of weird that those issues still happen a bit. But yeah, graphics wise, there are some issues. The games overall do look fine. Like, I think the update definitely helped a bit with that, but there's a few problems there with it. And then there's another issue that I have with the Switch version of these games. So aiming weapons on console, I think, is always not good. It's always a problem. You kind of need aim assist for it to be enjoyable at all, because the analog sticks, it just doesn't work very well. The Switch kind of fixes this because they have gyro aiming. Like, you have the gyroscope on the Joy-Con or the Pro Controller, and it should make things way easier because you can just do smaller movements to do more precise aiming. That's why it's so great to play games like Metroid Prime or Splatoon on the Switch, because gyro aiming gives you so much more precision and the ability to make small adjustments on the fly without relying on the analog sticks. They implemented that in GTA, the entire trilogy, but it doesn't work very well. Like, every time I tried to aim, and it wasn't always noticeable because you thankfully don't always need a lot of precision. But when you try to aim and you do want to get precision, the controller does not respond well to small movements. I keep twisting the controller very slowly, and the target just does not move. And then it suddenly just jumps to the point where I'm on the other side of the character that I wanted to shoot. Like, it happens a lot, like a whole lot in this game. And I think it's a bigger problem in GTA 3 and then San Andreas because of the missions that are involved with them. Like in Vice City, I don't think there's a lot of missions where you really need super precision and you're like under fire all the time. You do usually have enough time to like think and aim properly. But in GTA 3, there's this mission towards the end where you have to shoot these guys that explode when you shoot them. And there's a lot of them, and you have to kill them all before they get too close, because if they're too close to you, they will explode and kill you. So it's really hard to just get the right shot on them, with the aiming being as problematic as it is. And it really doesn't help that, like, when you're aiming, you can't aim forward with a submachine gun and then move backwards away from what you're shooting at, because when you try to move backwards, your character just turns and stops shooting, so it makes movement really annoying. You can't really move while shooting like that. It's really frustrating. And then it happens again in San Andreas towards the end, where there's a lot of missions where you have to like kill a lot of enemies very quickly, and it just doesn't work very well. Like it's hard to aim at all of the enemies and defeat them before they shoot at you, and there's a lot of them and they keep coming, so it's really hard to do. And yeah, it makes those missions very frustrating to do. I had a bad time with some of those because I couldn't aim properly. I was trying to use the gyro aiming and it just wasn't reliable. So yeah, it definitely made those games a lot more frustrating than they needed to be. Because a lot of other games on Switch, they do gyro aiming right. Like all of the Nintendo developed games are enhanced by having motion controls. But no, here it gets really annoying. I was tempted to just turn off gyro aiming, but I think it would have been worse that way, because I don't think aiming with just the analog sticks would be much better. But what I ended up doing is I kind of just had to like cheat a little bit, and I just stop aiming and start aiming again, because of aim assist. You don't just lock your sight to the enemy. So you just, if you lose track of an enemy, you just stop aiming and start aiming again, and then it just locks onto the enemy, and it's way easier to finish them off. So that's what I had to do. It's just like rely on aim assist very constantly to make the game playable. And I think, I wish that wasn't the case, because I definitely do prefer feeling like I'm in control. But yeah, that was unfortunate, and that it will cause some frustrations playing these games on Switch. I think it's a little annoying to have to deal with those control issues. I doubt they're going to update it again at this point. The fact that they did update it at all, like 3 years later, was already very impressive. Maybe they'll surprise us again, but I can't really see it happening. But yeah, like either way, I think the games are still worth playing. You will have to deal with some annoyances, but these games just keep getting better and better from each entry to the next. And I think because of that, this package, like, you get 3 games for like $60. You can probably get a pretty big discount on it these days, considering the game's pretty old. So yeah, I think the GTA Collection Trilogy is worth playing and buying, like, considering you got 3 pretty good games at once. Yeah, it's pretty good and it's worth it. There are some issues though with the Switch port, but I assume they also affect the other console versions. So I don't know. I think the Switch, the fact that you can play portably and take it anywhere is still very cool. So yeah, I would say it's worth playing. I had some annoyances with these games, but I still like them a lot. So yeah, if you've been on the fence, if you've been thinking about buying them, absolutely, I think it's worth giving them a shot. Yeah, that's about it for this video. So thank you for watching. Bye. Hey, before you go, I'm going to be streaming tonight once again, if you're watching this on the day that it comes out. I am streaming at 11 p.m. GMT, which is 6 p.m. Eastern Time or 3 p.m. Pacific Time. I try to make that the latest time I start, so I might start a little bit earlier if I can. But yeah, I'd love to have you. I'm watching Nintendo's presentations of the Switch era, and I'm playing The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past on the Game Boy Advance, so I'd love to see you there. Bye again.